velvet on her wrist, lies in the eye. Casinos don't sleep. They change their breathing. When the last bus exhales a row of hopefuls and the carpet drinks down the day's perfume, the building switches languages. Day is comps and brunch lines, the clatter of rewards cards and apologies with free drink coupons stapled on. Night is the soft hiss of filtered air and the whisper of felt under chips, the invisible ballet of dealers washing decks, the click of lenses in the ceiling. The chandeliers stop showing off and start listening. If you've never stood in a surveillance nest at 3 a.m. with 24 screens looking back like patient sharks, you don't know how a city condenses into heat signatures and habits. I'm Julian, shift supervisor in the eye, the surveillance room that pretends it's a choir loft and is really a confessional. On my belt, a badge that says I can open what other people pretend isn't there, a multi-tool that knows the difference between tight and cruel, and a small flashlight I never turn on unless I'm alone. In front of me, a wall of monitors, a rack of DVRs whose fans hum like bees, a joystick that can make a stranger's luck bigger or smaller just by watching. I can tell from the way a chip rack settles in a dealer's hand if she slept. I know by the angle of a gambler's shoulders when he's practicing faith instead of math. I can tell from the blur on camera 17 if the air over Baccarat has learned a new tremble. Vivian, my wife, then curated nights for people who wanted proof their lives could be glossy. Event planner, stage whisperer, trouble in that narrow meaning where the trouble is worth it. She wore a velvet ribbon around her left wrist inside, where my mouth could find it if I had clearance. On Wednesdays, when our orbits crossed, she'd swing through the employee door with a visitor badge I'd pre-authorized, and the cameras would register her as a moving privilege. She'd slide onto the counter beside my keyboard, one heel perched on a file cabinet as if she'd invented leverage, and she'd hook 2 fingers in my belt under the pretense of fixing a thread. I'd put my mouth in the notch below her collarbone, where a voice collects itself before it chooses a tone, and breathe until her shoulders changed professions. We were careful. The eye remembers better than vows, and casino glass keeps fingerprints like it plans to use them later. Some sanctuaries you build out of seconds between the dealers, place your bets, and the wheels first click. The first sign didn't raise an alarm. At 1:37 a.m., Card Access recorded door held 4S on the catwalk that feeds the high-limit ceiling cams without a badge. At 1:39, camera 7A over the private roulette room fuzzed and snapped into focus like a blink done close to the lens. At 1:41, housekeeping logged 2 flutes taken up to the penthouse corridor and never scanned back in. And at 1:46, I saw it, the faintest ring of cherry red on the lip of a paper coffee cup tucked beside a server rack, menthol bright where the lights didn't quite reach. Vivian's mouth tastes like fig and tea. Menthol belongs to the kind of lipstick that doesn't apologize afterward. 2 nights later, the same minute put fingers on my neck. Door held 5S. A thermal hotspot shimmered briefly near the ventilation grate by the high-limit cage, as if someone had leaned, bored and warm, with a good suit and worse judgment. On the carpet outside the private elevator, a single sequin crouched in the pattern like a star pretending it had always been there. Our uniforms don't sequin. My shoulder blades understood before my head did. I'm not a cop. I live where policy meets habit and learn the difference by looking long enough. But I believe in traces. In the training closet, we keep a bottle of UV developer for staff safety DMOS, harmless and petty, a gentle teacher. That night, I breathed a crescent under the handle of the catwalk door, dusted a whisper on the back of the varicam that floats above Baccarat, and kissed a soft line along the underside of the thermostat in the penthouse vestibule where an eager hand might pause. I strung a single nylon hair, fishing line, across the service door to the ceiling grid over high limit, just enough tension to fall and die on the navy carpet if disturbed. Then I looked up at my reflection in the dead black of an off monitor and smiled the way a man smiles when he's already decided which drawer of himself he's not going to open. Vivian came later, mouth amber, dress choosing its own narrative. She took a sip of my coffee without flinching, as if forgiveness and caffeine shared a category, and pressed her palm to my sternum, checking a gauge she knew by heart. "Your temple smells like fear and lemon," she said. Her eyes were not on me, but on a monitor where a man's hand hovered over a stack of 50s like a bird reconsidering migration. "It dreams too loud," I said. "I put it to bed with procedures." My hand found the side of her throat. Hello, not a hold. Her shoulders softened the way a plan stops acting and becomes a promise. "We should have it," she said. "The conversation," I said, because I am the kind of man who names a thing to shave it down to a shape we can live with. "Open," she put the word on the counter like a glass. "Not chaos, not cruelty. No one from your team, no one who pays me. We say it before, not after. Protection isn't a suggestion, we are first. Our bed is a border. The look flicked around the room that knows too much is a sanctuary even if you don't call it that." I made a strip club joke about being a sacristan of velvet rope. Her mouth retired me from the pulpit in one touch. We wrote our terms on skin without ink and treated them as if the cameras could read them. Morning gave me back my moth. The nylon hair lay curled like a tiny sentence fragment having been read and dropped. Under black light, pale half-moon smiled from handle, lens housing, thermostat at the exact heights of human eagerness. Behind a network switch, an earbud tip slept by a small drift of dust, the kind you buy by the dozen and throw away as if discretion were recyclable. Vivian keeps her hair with matte pins. Sensible, loyal. This was the brightness of a decision made on someone else's money. His name arrived with PR, wrapped in inevitability. Kai Mercer, lifestyle host, gambling content, shooting a taste of the high life segment, requests after-hours ambience. He had the handshake of a man who always meets doors from the welcome side. White sneakers that pronounced creative on the carpet. "The ceiling looks like the night is performing for me," he said, sentence aimed like a soft dart toward a lens. His eyes measured the angles of my cameras the way a clever thief walks the room just to feel the locks. At home, the kettle told the truth. Vivian laid her hand flat on the table, fingers splayed like a lighting rig made of bones. "I used the word," she said. She didn't shrink. "I shouldn't have let that into your walls. I won't again, not here." "What time?" I asked, stupid with logs. "It isn't the hour that cleans it," she said, and I loved and hated her for being right. We lasted a month like citizens of a very polite border, she told me before. I put the bottle of UV back with the theatrics. Kai flowed through our nights like expensive cologne, odorless on camera, obvious in person, videographer in tow, kindness on layaway. The building breathed like a chest relieved of pressure. The pact felt possible. Thursday, the week's self-portrait came back on schedule. 1:37 door held, 1:39 camera blink, 1:41 thermostat nudge. In the staff pantry, a flute waited in the drying rack painted with a peppermint ring I didn't need a black light to see. On the stairwell cam, a silhouette paused as if listening for applause. I didn't pull footage for HR. I didn't call security and write a scene. I held my hands on the joystick and worked the games that wanted shepherding. And I let my anger stand in the corner like a drunk being served water and told to be quiet. The separation came like all separations worth their kindness, rehearsed, chosen, ordinary. Vivian took a one-bedroom 10 minutes away with a ficus trying too hard and a balcony that would never be as romantic as she needed it to be. I kept my chipped mug, my lucky pen that never learned luck, my routines. She took the singing kettle. "Hate me clean," she said. "If you can't, file me under something you rarely touch." "I label well," I said, and we both smiled in that sad, professional way. Work stitched me with thread that smelled like cool electronics and citrus. A pit boss called for eyes on a man whose luck didn't match his math. I watched the hands, not the face, and saved the table from its story. A dealer's fingers shook and the cards came out in clumsy poems. I nudged her a break before she could make an error we'd have to forgive. A bartender washed a glass with that absent-minded grace only the long night remembers. I let the camera love him for 3 seconds and then moved on. I slept in edges. I learned to like the way the building exhaled when I told it could. She came with a Pelican case and a credential nobody pays attention to until something important blinks. Rena was the slot system's tech dispatched by the vendor to update firmware the insurer had nagged about. Her hair was twisted into a coil and pinned with a clear clip that caught the casino light and made a small argument for mercy. She smelled like alcohol wipes and the rain you never actually see. On her middle finger, a pale scar lay like a comma where a cabinet had once tried to keep her. She wore a hoodie saved from paint and a gaze saved from none of the men who deserved it. We met for real at 3:19 a.m., shoulder to shoulder in the belly behind the slots where the floor shows its ribs, hoppers, wiring, the forgetful skeleton of the games. Rena pressed her ear to a cabinet's thin skin and tapped the metal with the back of her fingernail until a sulking fan admitted defeat. "Respect, not force," she told the machine, and the machine remembered what it meant to be told the truth. "Everything worth keeping," I said, and angled my flashlight where she'd have asked if asking was her style. Our fingers brushed when she took the screwdriver back. The electricity traveled the right way. Our first kiss happened in the service elevator between the eye and the mezzanine, halfway between judgment and floor. We had killed it for testing, always the alibi, and the car sighed around us like a tired room. Rena put her palm against my sternum, exact and steady, as if she were checking a breaker's warmth. I placed my mouth under her ear, in that small country where language becomes breath first, and we stood while something old in both of us changed jobs. She kept her eyes open, not a dare, a joy that the building stayed upright while we tilted. My hand found the side of her throat, greeting, not proof. We stepped apart before the car's alarm could remember its ethics. We laughed like people who know about systems and decided not to test this one to failure. With Rena, precision wore tenderness the way a dealer wears white. Not to show off, to be clean. She likes my thumb resting on the pulse inside her wrist and my refusal to hurry. She comes to sit astride my lap in the tiny glass office off the eye, blind down, monitors dimmed, the ceiling full of angels that are really cameras not looking. With a fingernail she draws on my forearm the path from cabinet to server to comp authority, and I think no body has ever diagrammed me with this much care. We set rules the building could bless, not in high limit, not on a table, not anywhere a camera could remember better than we do. Yes, in the slot boneyard with its clean dust. Yes, on the mezzanine fire stair that nobody uses after 2. Yes, on the roof under the big sign when the neon flickers off to stretch. If you came for revenge dressed in a tuxedo, I'm not your dealer. I could have printed logs and highlighted UV bows and written an internal memo for legal. I could have whispered to gaming that a host with a camera confused access with appetite. I could have taught Kai Mercer the difference between being allowed and being welcome. But a casino is a sanctuary for other people's hope. The old woman at penny slots who plays the same machine because it knows her laugh needs the lights to keep their bargain. The man with the badge who just needs to sit where the air is cold, and the math is honest for a minute needs me to be kinder than my pride. Also, Rena prefers me when I smell like patience and clean metal, not victory. Vivian and I relearned sentences without teeth. She kept the contract to design our New Year's gala, because she's excellent and I am not small. Sometimes she texts me a picture of a basil plant on her balcony, pretending to be endemic to some better balcony. I send back a still of the floor at 4:07 a.m. when the carpet looks like a sleeping animal. Proud of you. She wrote the night I caught a collusion attempt at a mini baccarat table with a nudge to a pit boss, and not a single scene. I let the words sit. They had no claws. Kai still appears when a sponsor needs him to try luck on camera. We crossed in the back corridor near the freight elevator. He lifted 2 fingers in a salute that hadn't served in anything. "The eye must be a hell of a throne," he said. "It's not a throne," I said. "It's a ledger." He smiled the smile of a man who thinks composure means surrender, and let the door bounce off his heel like it was glad to see him. Nights went back to being honest. A man cried at the bar without doing anything wrong. I watched him to make sure nobody did anything wrong to him. A dealer miscounted a rack and caught it herself. I wrote a note praising the check, not the error. A security guard drifted through a quiet patch like a cloud. I clicked to a different camera and let him be human for a minute without making explaining part of his job. Sometimes I wake in the little cot behind the eye at a time that refuses a name. If Rena's shin is heavy across my thigh like a comma placed exactly where the sentence needs breathing, I set my hand to her throat and wait for the small lift that says yes. The difference between an ending and a finish has a temperature. My palm reads it better than my mouth ever will. Months after the developer went back to its drawer of useful lies, the casino staged a donors' night called Under the Chandelier. I wore black because black forgives neon. Vivian stood under a tamed rig, hair shorter like a decision with clean edges. "Is she gentle?" she asked without saying Rena, because we finally know how to offer names instead of throwing them. "She's exact," I said. "It's my religion's word for good, tenderness with a manual." "Be kind," she said, "not a blessing, an instruction." We touched glasses of water because water is what you drink if you want to keep your hands steady. Down on the floor, the high-limit room murmured to itself like an animal dreaming. Kai told a circle of donors that chance is a mirror, and they believed him because they wanted to. Let him keep their indulgence. I had a door to lock, a blower to thank with a touch for not choking, a woman to meet under a big sign that would pretend to be a star for us. Casinos don't do morals. They do tolerances and counts and 1,000 little rituals designed to keep strangers' stories from colliding in the wrong corridor. To the new hire who will slip into the eye some night with eyes too bright and ask what to do with the part of the job that isn't on the test, I'll say what I say to myself when my pride wants to write a play. Log it, breathe, decide. Keep the sanctuary sacred. Don't let the floor carry your grievance. Keep evidence if you have to. Refuse the robe. Remember that what runs under your cameras is the pause in somebody else's life. They won't wait for your forgiveness to keep going. Before dawn, I take my last round like a song that knows my step. I run my palm down the flank of the freight elevator like I'm checking the heart of a good dog. "All green," I tell the radio, which is another word for my chest. The small lights give me their small truths. I silence things in the right order. I turn a key. The profession folded into one honest click and climbed to the roof. Sometimes Rena is already there, hair clip catching the first gray of morning, smelling like clean wire and sleep. She sets her palm on my sternum like testing a circuit she trusts. I put my mouth in the old place under her ear, where breath becomes the only language worth speaking. And I keep the only oath I took without a dealer to witness. Sanctuaries are built, not found. Love is a maintenance log. I won't use the eye to stage my revenge. If the access log coughs again at 1:37, I'll see it. I'll choose a drawer, the one with powder or the one where patience sleeps, tidy as a coil of line. Lately I open, look close, and choose patience. It looks good on the glass. It holds me upright. And when the first bus in the morning opens its doors and exhales a new inventory of wishes, I go back down with velvet on my tongue, Rena's hand in mine, and the quiet certainty that tonight I carried the truth at the right speed.